The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios.
Hi, this is Mia Mosinzia, also known as Mia No Time for Love. Check out my latest book, Missing, available on Amazon.
The Mike Wagner Show, also brought to you by The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, available on Amazon, highlighting the Book of David.
It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios, brought to you by our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Mosinzia, Missing, available on Amazon, paperback and ebook, coming soon, Missing 2, double the suspense, double the fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by a sweet psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, including 30 exquisite paintings and King David Psalms. Check out the latest from Serena Wagner, the sweet psalmist, Amazon keyword, Sweet Psalmist, Serena Wagner. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, 50 podcast platforms, heard in 110 countries. Follow us on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, Apple Music, BitChute, Rumble, YouTube, and Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and also all the social media platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok as well. We're here with amazing author and University of Baltimore School of Law professor and the director of Center for Sport and the Law. We'll get to more of that. Co-chaired the Commission on State and the U.S. Olympics and Paralympics, and also executive board and sports law of the AALS. I hope I get that right. U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, and also the ad review panel, and also International Sports Law Journal. Also served on that board. Has a new book out there which delves into why youth sport has become all-consuming, costly, and in many cases detrimental to boys and girls. The book is called More Than Play: How Law, Policy, and Politics Shape American Youth Sport. Live, ladies and gentlemen, Plus Studios in beautiful downtown Baltimore, the amazing author, University of Baltimore School of Law professor, director of the Center for Sport and the Law, and the author of the book More Than Play: How Law, Policy, and the Politics Shape American Youth Sport, the multi-talented Dionne Koller. Dionne, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me here, Mike. It's really terrific to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on as well, too. A great city of Baltimore with all the wonderful sports as well, like the Orioles, the Ravens, and everything like that. You're an author, University of Baltimore School of Law professor, and director of Center for Sport and the Law. You co-chair the Commission on State of the U.S. Olympics and the Paralympics, and also served on a number of boards like the Sports Law of AALS, and also U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, Admin Review Panel, Education Board for the International Sports, and also the new book basically just goes into why youth sport has become all-consuming, costly in many cases, detrimental to boys and girls, and we'll talk about some of these dynamics, why it's happened. The book is called More Than Play: How Law, Policy, and Politics Shape American Youth Sport. Before getting on that, Dionne, tell us how you first got started.
Well, I mean, this book is something that I wrote for personal and professional reasons. I got into sports law and got interested in this material because, first of all, I was an athlete growing up. I love sports, and so for personal reasons, I was very interested in pursuing sports law and continuing to write about it. I put my kids into youth sports. And so from a personal angle, I wanted to certainly be writing about this and working in this. But from a professional side, Mike, what I realized is that we just don't have enough legal kind of writing and scholarship about what's going on in youth sports. We have a lot from the medical community, from sociology, from different other academic disciplines, but the legal community has mostly ignored youth sports. And I thought that there was a real opportunity here to explain what was going on.
And why was the legal community not involved with this?
Well, I think one of the things I found in my research is that the law just assumes that youth sport is just always a good thing. It's something positive for kids. And so I think that as lawyers and legal scholars, we just assume there's really nothing to say about youth sports. Isn't it just good and easy and positive and something everybody should be doing? And so I think many of us, I'm included in this, I've been teaching sports law now for nearly 20 years, and I never included it in what I was teaching. I focused on professional and college sports. And so we just didn't think of youth sports as something that was deserving of our attention because, hey, isn't it all just good? And that's that. But there's a lot more to the story than that I found. And so I thought it was really important to describe that.
And also maybe think of backyard sports. It doesn't necessarily have to be like league play, sanction, all that. I mean, backyard sports, that's been missing for quite some time.
Yeah, we just don't do that nearly as much as we should, Mike. I mean, now, certainly when I was growing up, there was a lot more free play and kids just sort of playing in the backyard or down the street or at a park somewhere. It's now much more adult-led and structured, organized youth sports. And that's one of the things I talk about in the book, which is over the last 30 years, there's been a major change in how children even engage with sports. It's really not like it used to be. And so that warrants some attention.
Mm-hmm. At what point do you think, maybe year wise, decade wise, and everything? And of course, we've been in free play for quite some time. I mean, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, and everything like that. You just get on the street, get in someone's yard, or even go to a park behind the school or out in open land where there's no rules, nothing, no supervision, everything like that. At what point, or maybe in a year or in a decade or some, has that significantly changed from just gathering a bunch of friends, going out to a field, the park, and just, play whatever, baseball, football, basketball, hockey, bring a ball, have fun, sunrise to sunset, to get into where it's like adults have to be involved, community has to be involved, or, worse, sanction, lawyers and everything, where it has gotten to the point where it's like it went from the backyard free play to becoming, just adult directed and everything else, as you mentioned. Like what year, what decade, what precise moment do you guess would that be?
Well, I don't think there's a precise year, but I think sports sociologists have said since the 1980s, about the early 1990s, we start seeing this shift from more free play into more structured activities. And so about the early 1990s is when sociologists say parents became much more interested in putting their kids into activities that could cultivate skills and help kids develop and sort of develop measurable outcomes, right? And we also saw the evolution of the sports industry. So as the sports industry continues to grow during this time and explodes in popularity, we see that leaving kids to just play by themselves is becoming less popular, and having kids develop skills to become the next Michael Jordan or next great athlete becomes more popular. So there's a lot of different factors, but I think it's about the late 80s, early 1990s, what my research showed in terms of the history. And of course, it's still ongoing, right? We are now continuing to evolve where youth sport is becoming even more expensive, adult-led, structured, organized travel. And so we're right now at a point in history where we're the farthest away than we've ever been from that sort of free play predominant model. That certainly was something that when I was growing up was more common.
What are some of the factors that are involved with the parents that cause getting more involved in everything? Was it because of work schedules? Was it salary demands or schedules or anything? What are some of the precise factors that made it where it's parents have to get involved? Like some of the factors, work or schedules?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different factors, Mike, but certainly there's an idea that this notion that being a good parent meant that you put your kids into activities that can cultivate their talents, rather than leaving kids alone to sort of play. And, certainly when I grew up, you'd go out and play and, be back by dinner, right?
I remember that. Yeah. Sunrise.
Right. No
sunset,
adults
yeah.
were over your shoulder all day, right? Well, those ideas changed. That idea that you leave kids to sort of be free to explore. That idea sort of went in decline, and then it became good parents ensure that their children are supervised, and most importantly, supervised in activities that can really cultivate their talents, so that those kids can then get into good colleges and have a great life in terms of employment possibilities. The whole idea is you can't leave kids to sort of develop themselves. You have to be cultivating them and involved as a parent. So as those ideas of more involved parenting kind of got swept in, and certainly as two income households, you need things for kids to do to be supervised. So lots of different factors here, but I think what's feeding into these general societal factors is obviously the evolution of the global sports industry. And as we need more athletic talent, we have to start going into the youth category to start building that talent along the way.
And of course, you talked about having all supervision, everything like that. How do you think the sports program, like with today being so regulated compared to the rest of the world, and sometimes even like the poorer countries, the parents will let their kids play soccer, especially around Brazil, South America, and everything. And without all these programs, some of them have become just great superstars, almost like Pele, Ronaldo, and all that. And of course, especially baseball, some poor countries, even like, some have end up being like a smaller version of Cal Ripken from Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, lots of countries are doing lots of different things. What we know is that around the world, more and more countries are engaging children in sports, again, because of the development of the global sports industry. And of course, you talk about soccer as a great example. But in the United States, we don't have a lot of regulation or policy, like a policy agenda in terms of government setting goals for kids' involvement in sports. From the perspective of kind of funding a lot of sports, we don't have a lot of government involvement in sports. Certainly, the government encourages kids to get involved in sports from the perspective of it's good for kids to exercise and the childhood obesity epidemic and lots of things like that. But we really don't have kind of a system where, say, the government is helping to fund youth sports like in lots of other places in the world. We don't have a government agency that's in charge of sports or that takes kind of any supervisory role over youth sports. So what's happened is youth sport has grown up in the private sector in the United States, unlike in other countries, and it's gotten so expensive that, and you bring up the example of soccer. Soccer in the United States for kids is now so very expensive that it's a lot of kids can't even access it. They can't play, they can't get involved. And so without kind of good publicly funded opportunities, you have a lot of kids that could be the next Pele, and they can't access it in an organized way, at least.
And do you think government intervention does need to be involved, or do you think, or is there a fear that government could get too much involved, hampering the sports culture, especially with cuts that's happening with Department of government efficiency? Do you think would that be necessary during this time, or is that going to be more of a deterrent?
Well, I think certainly there's not a political appetite now for more government related to anything. But in terms of whether there's a need for more government involvement in sports, I think there's a good argument that there is. Not a government takeover of youth sports, not micromanaging Little League, nothing like that. But if you think about it, Mike, the government can be involved in a few different ways. First of all, there's federal government involvement and there's state government involvement. And the ways that our federal or state governments can get involved is, number one, through more public funding for kids' sports. More kids in this country could participate in sports if we went back to more of a recreational league model, and if we did more public funding so that more kids could get involved. That would be healthy. It would probably save us a lot of money in the long run in terms of healthcare costs and all the like. That would be a really good investment. We know sports does some good things. Right now, we don't have a lot of public funding for sports. So that's one way the government could be involved. A second way the government can be involved is there could be some at least minimum safety standards. So Mike, when we talk about government involvement, I think we talk about it in generalities and we think, oh, wait a second, we don't want the government taking everything over. but there's a whole lot of space in between no involvement and a takeover, right, of sports, for, say, requiring coaches to have background checks so that every coach that's involved with a kid we know, say, doesn't have a criminal record or something like that. So I think there's a lot of room for some minimum standards and a little more funding than we have today, and it could make a big difference in the lives of kids.
And speaking of coaches, parents, athletes, and everything like that, that dynamic has somehow changed as well too. In the book, More Than Play: How Law, Policy, and Politics Shape Youth American Sport, with Dionne Koller. We'll get to that in just 1 minute. But first, you listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SonicWeb Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget, SonicWeb Studios is the answer. SonicWeb Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. It's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give an official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those who will be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews and even endorsed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forrest Riley, and Mayo. So grab your copy today, for it goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Coming soon, Missing 2, Double the Expense, Double the Fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, including 30 exquisite pains and King David Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives a new perspective of the life of David through Psalms he wrote as the time of shepherd where it started, and complicate yet turbulent relationship with King Saul. It's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, hope, and more. Check out the Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner on Amazon. Keyword Sweet Psalmist, Serena Wagner. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, 50 podcast platforms. Heard in over 110 countries. Take us with you on any mobile device. Follow us on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, also on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and more. And for t-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies, Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. Keywords, Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, merchandise, and more, Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. And support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. We're here with amazing author and University of Baltimore School of Law professor and the director of Center for Sport and the Law, Dionne Koller, here on the Mike Wagner Show with More Than Play: How Law, Policy, and Politics Shape Youth American Sports. You talked about being involved with sports as youth. I did with baseball, some basketball, and a little bit of tennis. And of course, we did our free thing in hockey, and the coaches basically just let you guide you, babysit, play, and everything. Now that has shifted to where it's just like you simply have the coaches in a different hierarchy. So let's talk about how that was back in the day we played and how it is now, and what was causing that change in dynamic.
Yeah, well, again, as sports for kids has gotten more adult-led and adult organized and supervised, one of the things is that now the coach is the boss, and there's much more structure. So with free play, when kids are playing with themselves, they can make up the rules, they make up the structure, they decide when they start, when they stop, and sort of who's on what team and how it goes. I think we all remember some of those playground lessons.
Oh, yes. And of course, the last one being picked could be Mr. Irrelevant, like Brock Purdy. It's like last one picked could be a superstar.
Right. So, but nowadays the coach is the boss, and so that just creates a hierarchy, and it especially creates some hierarchies because even a lot of parents say, geez, we don't want to, anger the coach, make the coach unhappy, step in. Parents are giving their authority over to coaches. But a lot of times these coaches aren't necessarily trained. They don't have sort of training in kind of child development, for instance. And what we know about the U.S. system is that quite frequently it just prioritizes kids who are very good at their sport, kind of early and quickly. But we know that children grow and develop over time and at different ways and in different speeds. And so when you have coaches that aren't necessarily as trained and schooled in that, we can weed out a lot of kids from our system because they're in the system and a coach says, okay, you're not going to make the next level of team. And so that's it. There's nowhere else for the kid to go. So I think that's one of the unfortunate downsides. I mean, certainly we're more structured now. We have, and there's a lot of positives with coaches and involvement and organization. But there's also some negatives, which is kids can be kind of labeled, you're an athlete and you're not, at a very young age.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, there's been a strong emphasis on winning, which is getting to a point of being rather poisonous as well in terms of free play and recreational park district. You get out there, have fun, you learn lessons. Even coaches out there who believe in structure back in the day, they had no interest in winning. It was just simply teaching lessons, what to do, and later applying life. And all of a sudden, you got coaches out there that just wins. It seems that that if I'm right, that it actually discourages the kid and just hampers their development and causes more discouragement if they're pressured to win every single time.
Yeah, I think what we have really good data on, Mike, is that most children who enter youth sports leave youth sports by the time they're 12, 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so that is really a stunning statistic. And what we know is that they leave because of either overuse injuries or burnout. Those are major factors. And one of the things that drives overuse injuries and burnout is this drive to compete, and win. That's hard. That's a sort of professional level demand on children who aren't developmentally ready to handle it. And again, what it does is it pushes a lot more kids out of sports than brings them in. And I think that's an unfortunate consequence of our overly competitive youth sports system. Certainly there are kids who are destined to be elite athletes. We don't want to shut down the system for those kids and for that small percentage of kids that are really going to go on. They're going to be Olympians. They're going to be other types of elite athletes. Of course, we want to accommodate that. But the idea that tens of millions of children, the ones who are participating, not everybody's going to be sort of on that elite track, but we're running a system that is essentially for that sort of very small number of kids. And so most kids are quitting, and they're quitting because they're exhausted and their bodies are exhausted.
Mm-hmm. Also, I heard the statistic recently too, and if you confirm, maybe just tweak a little bit. That I heard the statistic in order for a player to be successful in baseball, just as a shortstop, that the odds of making the high school team was like 1 in 100 or something like that. Then go to college, 1 in 1,000. Then you have the minor leagues, 1 in 10,000. Or if you move up in levels, and then starting shortstop in majors, I heard it's like about 1 million, 3 million, and it's like a really high odds. It's almost like trying to win the lottery if you become a starting shortstop.
Yeah, I mean, this is really what it's becoming. I mean, to even play on a college team, Mike. And so what we know from the research as well is that parents have completely, almost really delusional sort of understandings, thinking my kid's going to beat the odds, my kid's going to beat the odds. Well, everybody thinks that their kid's going to beat the odds, and that math just doesn't work. So certainly we want to have opportunities for kids to go on to those higher levels, but we also need a system that sort of accommodates, nurtures, and provides benefits for all the millions and millions of kids who don't go on to become a starting shortstop anywhere, but we want them to have good sports experience because we want them to become lifelong exercisers and just adopt these healthy lifestyles. And so I think there's a lot of room for improvement from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. And plus, for those who decide to go on to be an athlete, then you got the student athlete, in college and everything like that. Back in the day, where a student athlete is to where you go on a scholarship or a walk-on, you play whatever sport, you go and get your degree, and then you take those skills you learn in the classroom and the field and work with coaches. Then you just move on into the professional world. But Now it's just like the dynamic has turned where it's like the student athlete is expecting to be paid. So I don't know if it's like, should they pay the student athletes back then just to keep them in, or is this like, are they waking up to realizing now that, hey, I think it's time to pay them? Even what's even more evident that you see these jerseys with their numbers on it, and yet the student athlete's getting no money from it.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, the college athlete athletics model is a very legally complex situation, and certainly what we have now with antitrust lawsuits, it makes it even more complex. What we know about college athletics, however, is that yes, there's now very strong legal claims for athletes to make money because college athletics has evolved, and every congressional investigation has shown that everybody's making college in college athletics is making money except the athlete. And certainly for anybody else on campus who was putting in the types of hours that the typical college athlete is putting in, at least in the revenue generating sports, we'd have to pay them, right? If you work 60 hours a week to work in the college library, we'd have to pay you a wage. So I think there's some legal issues there. Those are being sorted out. It's too bad that the NCAA didn't sort these things out before when they knew their model was illegal.
Right.
And so
Yes. Yes.
having
Oh my God.
litigation do it for you is always a painful process, but I think it's all going to be sorted out. But what happens is, as things change at the college level, that puts pressure on the youth model. And then parents say, hey, wait a second, if kids are getting paid in college, that's even more of a reason for me to push my kids too hard in youth sports.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, the minorities as well, too. Do you think how that's being affected as well, too? Back in the day, minorities were encouraged. Now it seems to be switching to entitlement. It's almost like, where do you draw the line if you include minorities, and kind of stepping and making sure that you don't get sued by a certain minority? It's like, minorities also come into play when it comes to sports.
Well, I think it's a really hard question when you're talking about children who are, socioeconomically disadvantaged, because I think one of the unfortunate issues in sports is that most kids, Black children of color, certainly girls, don't have as much access to sports. And certainly, for instance, Black males, their primary access is in football and basketball. They don't have access because it's just so expensive to, for instance, play soccer, swim, do other things. And so we have a model that really sort of steers certain kids into certain sports and provides only certain opportunities at a higher level. So I think more and more, if we open sports up, we would see kids finding sports that best match their talents. I think that would be good for the country. It would be good for our Olympic and Paralympic program. And so I think
definitely. I love to see that happen. Just have all these in there representing, not being forced in. I love to see that happen.
We have certainly much more we can do for our Olympic and Paralympic pipelines, if we opened up more youth sports to more kids and didn't make it so expensive. So we might finally have a winning handball team, Mike.
Handball, pickleball, cornhole. What is it like? You got like break dancing, rap dancing, roller skating. It's like, I watched a little bit of the Olympics last year. It's like, I couldn't think of new sports that came out. So
yeah, the International Olympic Committee is fighting hard to try and keep the Olympic movement relevant to young people. And so rock climbing it is, Mike. It's a little different than the Olympics of our youth.
I remember that. Yeah, too. As another thing I was going to mention as well, too, Title IX that has come into play as well. How do you think Title IX has benefited so far? Do you think it's still benefited, or has got to a point where it's hurting female athletes, or is it get to a point where it's on the verge of being abused or taken advantage of?
Well, the Title IX, it's now over 50 years old. And what we do know, what the data show about Title IX, first of all, Title IX only applies to school-based sports programs. It doesn't apply to anything outside of schools. But what we know very clearly is Title IX has really never been enforced the way it should have been enforced, and that girls and women still don't get the number of participation opportunities that they should. It's certainly much, much better than it used to be, but we're not quite there yet. So one of the things that I think is important is that we move away from sort of these outdated ideas, which were prevalent up until even just 20 years ago, that, girls weren't interested in sport as boys. But we now have the numbers. And if you look at high school sports, for instance, girls and boys, it's pretty equal. I mean, the demand is there. And so every kid, if they have access to it, would like to at least have an opportunity to play sports. Again, it's expensive. And then once we get them in the system, we often drive them out because it's just too competitive.
Right. Yeah. It's like, hey, come on, go pro, go college. Will you? Let's go.
Right, exactly. But since Title IX has been passed, that's one of the things that has caused our youth sports system to really explode in terms of an industry. Is there are a lot more people who want to play sports now.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's really great as well too, and of course a bit more as well too. What can people do to help and everything? We'll be back with More Than Play: How Law, Policy, Politics Shape American Youth Sport with Dionne Koller. You listen to the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international award-winning author Mia Molson's Missing. The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on a life of David Kling, 30 exquisite paintings, King David Psalms, Amazon.com, keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. We'll be back with author Dionne Koller of More Than Play: How Law, Policy, Politics Shape Youth American Sport after this timeout.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Hey there, Dana Alexa here, American News anchor. Hey, let me ask you something real quick. Why do you read a book? You're buying a story, a thought, a message. And a good book entertains and inspires. And that's exactly what Missing by award-winning author Mian Zia does. I have his book right here. And it's based on real events with relatable characters that hook you from start to finish. I personally love this book. It's super powerful and meaningful. You can actually get it on Amazon right now.
The Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Serena Wagner's book, The Sweet Psalmist, now available on Amazon. This book includes 30 exquisite paintings by well-known and unknown painters and King David Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives us a new perspective on his life in this book. Through the Psalms he wrote, his time as a shepherd in the field is where the book starts, and it goes on to describe his complicated and turbulent relationship with King Saul as well as other events. It's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, and more. It also offers advice on approaching God and living a life that pleases him. Check out the book, The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, now available on Amazon. Keywords, Sweet Psalmist, Serena Wagner.
Hey, this is Ray Powers, and boy, are you in luck. Right place, right time. Tuned in to the Mike Wagner Show. You heard me.
We're back with author Dionne Koller here on the Mike Wagner Show with More Than Play: How Law, Policy, Politics Shape Youth American Sport. And just one more thing, if you were to run the American sports system, whether it be IOC or some agency or whatever as well, what would you like to see enforced, and what would you like to see changes as well?
Well, I'd really like to see a lot more public funding for youth sports. I'd like to see all kids have an opportunity to play sports. I'd like to see a much broader range of sports options. There's so many different ways we can engage kids physically. It would be so good for them. We know it is. And if I were running it, I would make their at least a minimum, Mike, a minimum safety standard so that coaches have background checks and parents can have peace of mind to know that they're the people who are around their kids. Most of them are really, really good people, but just peace of mind to know that, we get those bad apples out of youth sports.
And don't forget the referees as well, too. Don't forget that.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to be done in youth sports, of course, but anybody who has access to kids in youth sports, I think, should have at least a criminal background check.
And I think that's a great idea. Drug tests, everything like that. You don't, come smelling booze like the Bad News Bears, those days, or cigar smoke.
Right. So, in my world, I wouldn't overly regulate, Mike, but I would just make sure that some of these minimums are met and that more kids could get in the game.
Mm-hmm. And of course, lastly, how can we help?
Well, I think the way to help is to talk to your state legislators, talk to your federal legislators, and say, let's do some common sense things and get more kids involved in youth sports. It's good for the country.
And certainly indeed as well, too. Make it great again. And where can we find your book, More Than Play At, and all your works at, Dionne?
Well, you can find the book anywhere where books are sold, and you can learn more about me and my work at my website, DionneKoller.com.
That's certainly great. We're here with Dionne Koller of More Than Play, How Law, Policy, and Politics Shape Youth American Sport here on the Mike Wagner Show. Just a few more things. Dionne, what else can we expect in 2025 and beyond?
Well, I'm going to continue talking about the book in 2025 and continue writing about youth sports. And we have lots of states now, Mike, that are getting interested in learning more about what they can do to ensure safe, positive sport experiences. And so I look forward to working with any states that are interested in talking about these things more.
And we're certainly looking forward to as well. Who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
In my career, I would have to say my sports experience was the biggest, my youth sport experience was the biggest influence in my career, because not only did it get me interested in participating in sports, but it gave me the life skills needed to forge a career in sports. It's not, we say it so often, you learn so many great life lessons in youth sports, but I really look at that and say I truly did.
And I think that's really great as well, too. Everybody should remember that when they're playing. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Well, what I would say is get your kids involved in sports, but if you're a parent, be an involved parent. When your kid has gone too far, feels pushed too hard, make sure that you're there to say, okay, we're going to take a break. Take a long view of youth sports. Don't look at it as the ticket to college. Look at it as a ticket to lifelong health.
And I think that's really good advice as well, too. That's really good advice. We're here with the multi-talented Dionne Koller of More Than Play, How Law, Policy, and Politics Shape Youth American Sport here on the Mike Wagner Show. Dionne, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Learned a lot. Looking forward to having you soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Glad to have you back. And what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your book? Where can we purchase your book?
Go to DionneKoller.com.
DionneKoller.com. We'll check that out. Once again, Dionne, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to having you soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Glad to have you back. We wish you all the best. And Dionne, you definitely have a great future ahead of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mike.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Hey there, Dana Alexa here, American news anchor. Hey, let me ask you something real quick. Why do you read a book? You're buying a story, a thought, a message, and a good book entertains and inspires, and that's exactly what Missing by award-winning author Mian Zia does. I have his book right here, and it's based on real events with relatable characters that hook you from start to finish. I personally love this book. It's super powerful and meaningful. You can actually get it on Amazon right now.
The Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Serena Wagner's book, The Sweet Psalmist, now available on Amazon. This book includes 30 exquisite paintings by well-known and unknown painters and King David Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives us a new perspective on his life in this book. Through the Psalms he wrote, his time as a shepherd in the field is where the book starts, and it goes on to describe his complicated and turbulent relationship with King Saul as well as other events. It's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, and more. It also offers advice on approaching God and living a life that pleases him. Check out the book, The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, now available on Amazon. Keywords, Sweet Psalmist, Serena Wagner.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.